All right, so get ready for this deep dive because it's going to get pretty dark.
Yeah, we're talking about Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper.
Who just terrorized the University of Florida back in 1990.
5 students lost their lives.
Yeah.
To this brutal spree.
And it's pretty scary stuff.
What's really disturbing is that Rolling's case, as horrific as it was, actually became the inspiration for the slasher film Scream.
Oh.
The masked killer stalking victims in a small town, right? It mirrors the real-life fear that gripped Gainesville back then.
It's crazy.
We'll be exploring this connection in more detail later on in the deep dive.
It's just crazy to think that that actually fueled a horror movie.
It is. It is.
So our sources for this descent into the macabre
Yeah, let's talk about those.
are the Wikipedia entries on Danny Rolling himself,
Lord.
an article on biography.com
Right.
that delves into the Scream link,
Yeah, this should be interesting.
and an A&E piece that breaks down his capture.
Okay.
But let's start at the beginning,
Yeah, let's get into it.
where the seeds of this horror were sown.
So to understand the monster, we need to look at the making of the monster.
Yeah.
And Danny Rolling's childhood, it was a breeding ground for darkness.
Wow.
His father, James Rolling, was a police officer in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay.
And he just inflicted this reign of terror on his family.
Oh, no.
The abuse was relentless,
Oh, gosh.
both physical and psychological.
Jeez.
And it really left deep scars on young Danny.
The details are pretty disturbing from what I read.
Oh, yeah, they're awful.
We're talking about a father who flew into rages over just the smallest things like Danny's breathing.
Yeah, I read about that too.
And he even told him he was unwanted from birth.
Awful.
Yeah.
That's got to screw you up.
I mean, that's just a recipe for serious psychological damage.
And it went beyond words, too.
Oh, no.
There are accounts of James physically abusing Danny
Oh, my gosh.
and even forcing his wife, Danny's mother, to cut herself with a razor blade.
What?
Imagine growing up in that environment, constantly living in fear and feeling utterly worthless.
I mean, it makes you wonder how anyone could emerge from that without being just completely broken.
Right.
The sources say his mother tried to leave multiple times, but always ended up going back.
Yeah, that just adds another layer of helplessness to Danny's situation.
Talk that toxic cycle.
Exactly.
It's really no surprise that he exhibited early signs of mental and emotional instability.
Well, yeah, I mean, he developed multiple personalities.
Yeah.
Almost like he was fracturing under the pressure.
And displayed suicidal tendencies. This wasn't just typical teenage angst.
Right.
This was a young mind trying to cope with profound trauma.
Yeah, it's really sad.
So as he got older, did things improve at all?
Not really.
Did he find any stability?
No, not really.
Oh, man.
Rolling really struggled to fit into society.
Yeah.
He bounced between jobs,
Okay.
relationships,
Yeah.
and even had a short stint in the Air Force,
Oh, wow.
which ended with a dishonorable discharge.
Yeah.
It was just a constant cycle of conflict and instability.
Like he was on a collision course with disaster.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this pattern continued. With a failed marriage, multiple arrests for armed robbery, and periods of imprisonment.
Yep.
You get the sense that he was carrying all that rage and hurt from his childhood with him,
Yeah, he had a lot of baggage.
lashing out at the world that he felt had wronged him.
It's like he was looking for any outlet for his pain.
Right.
But those outlets only led him deeper into darkness.
But there's another layer to this story.
Oh.
Something that makes it even more complex and chilling.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Amidst all the chaos and violence, Rolling was drawn to art and music.
Really?
He even found solace in playing the guitar.
That's almost impossible to wrap your head around.
I know.
Here's this deeply disturbed individual capable of such brutality,
Right.
yet he's also finding comfort in creative expression.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how those two sides could coexist within the same person.
It's like this stark reminder that evil rarely presents itself in a clear-cut way. The human psyche is a labyrinth.
A total maze.
And in Rolling's case, those dark corridors were intertwined with glimpses of something lighter,
Yeah.
something that could have been a path to redemption.
It's a shame he didn't take it.
But that path was never taken.
Yeah.
Before we get to the Gainesville horrors,
Yeah.
there's another crucial chapter in Rolling's story that we need to examine.
Oh.
It sets the stage for the gruesome crimes that would make him infamous
Okay.
and reveals a pattern of escalating violence that's truly chilling.
I'm listening.
You're talking about Shreveport murders.
Yeah, those were brutal.
A year before Gainesville,
Right.
Rolling committed a triple homicide that foreshadowed the horrors to come.
So this wasn't his first time killing.
Nope.
Wow.
The victims were 24-year-old Julie Grissom, her 8-year-old nephew, Sean,
Oh my God.
and her 55-year-old father, Tom.
Awful.
They were brutally murdered in their home.
That's terrible.
And what's particularly disturbing is the way Rowling mutilated and posed Julie Grissom's body.
Okay, now this is where the story takes a really dark turn.
Yeah.
Almost like a horror movie coming to life.
It eerily mirrors what he would later do to his victims in Gainesville.
It's a chilling echo of his developing modus operandi.
Right.
We're seeing a pattern emerge.
Totally.
The targeted victims, the brutality of the attacks, and the almost ritualistic posing of the bodies.
Yeah.
It suggests a level of premeditation and a disturbing desire to control the narrative of his crimes.
Turning them into grotesque displays.
Exactly.
And there's one more terrifying detail from this period.
Oh, what's that?
Just months before the Gainesville murders, Rowling shot his own father in the head and stomach during an argument.
Oh, wow.
While his father miraculously survived.
Why?
It reveals the depths of rage that Rowling harbored.
That's insane.
It's a crucial turning point.
You think so?
Yeah, this act of violence against his abuser, the source of so much of his pain, seems to have unleashed a torrent of darkness within him.
I see what you mean.
It's as if by striking at his father, he had severed any remaining ties to his humanity and embraced the monster within.
It's like a switch flipped.
And it's after this incident that Rowling flees Louisiana and ends up in Gainesville, setting the stage for the terrifying events that would forever mark this college town.
This is where it gets really bad, huh?
Yeah, this is where things get really dark.
All right, well, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back and get into all that.
Sounds good.
Okay, so let's paint a picture here.
Right.
It's August 1990 in Gainesville, Florida.
Hot and humid.
A new semester starting at the University of Florida.
Right.
There's that youthful energy in the air,
Yeah.
optimism for the new year.
Everybody's excited.
But underneath that surface, a darkness is lurking, waiting to erupt.
It'll erupt, it did.
Yeah, over just 3 days, Danny Rowling, now fully embracing this monstrous persona, carved a path of destruction through the student population.
5 young lives brutally extinguished, their hopes and dreams snuffed out in a whirlwind of violence.
It's really hard to think about
It would forever stain the soul of the city.
the sheer brutality of these attacks,
Yeah.
the way Rowling violated his victims, both in life and death,
It's just unbelievable.
sent shockwaves through the entire community.
It wasn't just the act of killing, it was the deliberate cruelty,
Right.
the almost theatrical staging of the bodies that truly horrified people.
Let's dive into the terrifying timeline of these crimes.
Okay.
On August 24th, Rowling targeted an apartment shared by two 18-year-old freshmen, Sonja Larson and Christina Powell.
It's almost unbearable to imagine the terror they must have felt.
He found Powell asleep on the couch.
Okay.
But instead of confronting her right there, he stealthily made his way upstairs to the bedroom where Larson was sleeping.
Oh my God.
He taped her mouth shut, silencing her screams, before brutally stabbing her to death with a kabar knife.
It's just a level of calculated cruelty that's so hard to comprehend.
Then he went back downstairs,
Jeez.
subdued Powell, bound her wrists, and raped her,
Oh.
before stabbing her 5 times in the back.
And as if that wasn't horrific enough,
Yeah.
he returned upstairs and violated Larson's body after death.
The level of depravity is just staggering.
He then posed both bodies in sexually suggestive positions,
Oh, God.
took a shower, and left.
It's a chilling example of his need to not just kill,
Right.
but to defile and dominate his victims, even after death.
It's like something straight out of a horror movie.
Totally.
The methodical nature of his actions, the complete disregard for human life.
It's terrifying.
But tragically, this was just the beginning.
Oh, no.
The very next day,
Oh, God.
August 25th, Rowling broke into the apartment of 18-year-old Krista Hoyt, a student at Santa Fe College.
He pried open a sliding glass door
Okay.
and waited for her to return home.
So this time, he wasn't just seizing an opportunity, he was actively hunting.
Right, he was stalking his prey.
And when Krista arrived,
Yeah.
he overpowered her, bound her, and raped her in her own bedroom.
God.
Then he stabbed her in the back, taking her life. But even then, he wasn't finished.
Mhm.
He returned to her apartment later. And this is where the horror escalates.
What did he do?
He decapitated her
What?
and posed her body, sitting on the edge of the bed, her head placed on a shelf facing her.
Oh, my God, no way.
This wasn't just about killing anymore.
No.
It was about creating a spectacle, a macabre tableau designed to shock and terrorize.
Oh, I can't believe this.
The campus was understandably gripped by panic.
Oh, of course.
I mean, this wasn't just a random act of violence. It was a predator stalking their community.
Right. Everyone was scared.
Students are changing their routines, traveling in groups.
Yeah.
Some even fled the city altogether.
Makes sense.
The media was saturated with the story. The details of the murders splashed across newspapers and television screens.
I bet.
The fear wasn't confined to the campus.
Right. It was everywhere.
It permeated the entire city, turning everyday life into a nightmare.
It's like a real-life horror movie playing out.
And then 2 days later, on August 27th, Rolling struck again.
Jeez, he just wouldn't stop.
His victims were 23-year-old U.S. students, Tracy Pauls and Manny Taboada, a young couple living together.
Oh, no, not another one.
He broke into their apartment and confronted Taboada in his bedroom,
Oh, God.
killing him after a struggle.
Bastard.
Pauls, hearing the commotion, tried to barricade herself in her room.
I would have too.
But Rolling broke through,
Oh, God.
overpowered her, bound her, and raped her before ending her life with 3 stab wounds to the back.
It's just awful.
The sources point out a particularly disturbing detail about his female victims.
What's that?
They were all petite brunettes with brown eyes,
Okay.
eerily similar in appearance to Rolling's own mother.
Oh, wow.
It raises a lot of questions about his motivations and the psychological factors at play.
Yeah, I mean, was he seeking revenge against a maternal figure?
Right, was he trying to exert control over a type of woman who represented something he deeply resented?
It's impossible to know for sure.
It's a chilling reminder that behind the mask of a monster lies a human being,
Mm-hmm.
albeit one twisted by their own demons. In the midst of all this chaos, the authorities were desperately searching for any clue that could lead them to the killer.
They needed to catch him.
Initially, their focus fell on Edward Humphrey, a UF student with a history of mental illness.
Okay.
Humphrey was known to have outbursts
Mm-hmm.
and had even been arrested for assaulting his grandmother.
Wow.
He fit the profile of a troubled young man capable of violence.
I can see that.
However, as the investigation progressed, it became clear that Humphrey wasn't their guy.
Oh, really?
His blood type didn't match the evidence at the crime scenes,
Oh.
and he was eventually cleared.
Wow.
It's a reminder that in these high-stakes investigations, the pressure to find the culprit can sometimes lead to tunnel vision.
Right.
The focus on Humphrey allowed Rolling to slip through the cracks,
Buying him precious time to disappear into the shadows.
and that's exactly what he did.
Oh, no.
Rolling fled Gainesville,
Okay.
once again assuming this chameleon-like persona.
Blending back into society as if he were just another face in the crowd. But fate, it seems, had other plans.
The break in the case came from a completely unexpected source. A woman named Cindy Jurashich from Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
She had met Rolling previously at her hometown church
Okay.
and remembered some disturbing comments he had made about liking to stick knives in people.
What?
She also recalled him talking about wanting to go where there were beautiful girls he could watch all day.
Oh, God.
Those seemingly offhand remarks,
Hmm.
coupled with the news of the Gainesville murders,
Yeah.
sent a chill down her spine.
I bet.
She felt compelled to call Crime Stoppers.
It was a stroke of luck.
Totally.
A seemingly insignificant detail that would prove to be the key to unlocking the entire case.
Her tip, along with the striking similarities between the Gainesville and Shreveport murders, finally led investigators to zero in on Danny Rolling as their prime suspect.
Oh, wow. Finally.
And as fate would have it, Rolling was already in custody, arrested for an unrelated crime.
Oh, really?
Just 10 days after the murders of Pauls and Taboada, he was caught robbing a Winn-Dixie supermarket in Ocala, Florida.
Oh, wow.
He crashed the getaway car and was apprehended by police.
Yeah, what a mess.
They had no idea they stumbled upon the monster who had been terrorizing Gainesville.
Oh, my God.
But the pieces were about to fall into place.
Okay, so what happened?
Investigators quickly discovered that Rolling's blood type matched the DNA evidence found at the crime scenes.
So they had their guy.
A search of his belongings revealed a gun,
Okay.
screwdriver,
Right?
and a bag of money from the supermarket robbery.
Okay.
And then came the bombshell.
What?
They searched his campsite
Oh, no.
and unearthed audio diaries,
No way.
recordings where Rolling actually alluded to the murders,
Oh, my God.
revealing a chilling self-awareness and a perverse pride in his horrific acts.
It was a treasure trove of evidence.
Totally.
Confirmation not only of his guilt,
Yeah.
but also providing a disturbing glimpse into the mind of a killer.
The net was closing in on the Gainesville Ripper.
That's good to hear.
And justice, though delayed, seemed inevitable.
Thank goodness.
So they've got all this evidence against him, His own words are condemning him. What happens next?
So in November of 1991, Danny Rolling is formally charged with 5 counts of murder for those Gainesville killings. But the trial, which began nearly 4 years after the murders, took a really unexpected turn right from the start.
Right, I was reading that Rolling initially pleaded not guilty, but then he just abruptly changed his plea to guilty. It's almost like he wanted the world to know him as the Gainesville Ripper.
Exactly. It speaks to a level of narcissism you often see in these types of killers, a craving for recognition, like a twisted sense of pride in their horrific acts. But even with the guilty plea, the trial continued because the prosecution was seeking the death penalty.
So the defense was fighting to save his life. What was their strategy?
Rolling's defense attorneys argued that he suffered from severe personality disorders, and they claimed that an alternate personality named Gemini was actually responsible for the murders.
Oh, wow. It's like something straight out of a horror movie, a Jekyll and Hyde scenario, where this evil alter ego takes control. Did the jury buy it?
Not really. While a psychiatrist who evaluated Rolling did acknowledge that he had personality disorders, he also testified that Rolling was aware of his actions and knew what he was doing. There was no escaping accountability.
What about his family? Did they play any role in the trial?
Yeah, Rolling's mother, Claudia, testified on his behalf.
Okay.
She described the horrific abuse he endured at the hands of his father, painting a picture of a childhood steeped in trauma.
But I imagine the prosecution argued that this was no excuse for his crimes.
Absolutely. They maintained that regardless of his past, Rolling was responsible for his choices and deserved the ultimate punishment.
And in the end, that's exactly what happened. The jury recommended the death penalty, and he was sentenced to death in April of 1994.
His story doesn't end there, though. Rolling spent over a decade on death row, and just before his execution in 2006, he made a startling confession.
This is where those Shreveport murders come back into the picture, right?
Precisely. Rolling confessed to the Shreveport murders, providing a sense of closure to those cases. He handed his spiritual advisor a handwritten note detailing his involvement.
It's a reminder that even as one chapter closes, the ripple effects of these crimes continue to spread outward, touching lives and leaving scars that never fully heal. And it brings us back to that unsettling connection to Scream. It's impossible to talk about Danny Rolling without acknowledging the film that his crimes inspired.
It's a strange and disturbing relationship between reality and fiction. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson was really captivated by Rolling's case. He drew inspiration from the real-life horror to create the fictional world of Scream.
The masked killer, the terrorized town, the way the victims are chosen, there are so many parallels between the movie and reality.
But there's a crucial distinction. Scream is ultimately entertainment, a stylized and fictionalized portrayal of violence. The real-life terror inflicted by Danny Rolling was anything but entertaining.
His actions shattered lives, leaving a community forever scarred. It's a stark reminder that while we might enjoy the thrill of a horror movie, real-life monsters do exist.
And their actions have devastating consequences. That's the haunting takeaway from this deep dive into the dark world of Danny Rolling, the Gainesville Ripper, a story of abuse, mental illness, and a descent into unimaginable violence that continues to cast a long shadow.
It leaves us grappling with some pretty unsettling questions about the nature of evil, the roots of violence, and the fine line between horror as entertainment and the stark reality of human darkness.
We hope this deep dive has shed some light on the complexities of this case and the profound impact it had on those involved.
Remember the victims, their families, and the community forever changed by Rolling's actions.
And let their stories serve as a reminder of the darkness that lurks in the shadows and the importance of vigilance and understanding in a world where monsters can sometimes hide in plain sight.